All right, it's time to talk Nebraska football. We're just about a week away from the Huskers going to summer camp in preparation for the 2014 campaign. Bo Pelini's team coming off another 9-4 campaign. We bring in Brian Towle of SB Nation's Corn Nation to break down offense and defense, some of the storylines, some of the position battles, of course, the stars on offense, especially for this Husker team. Hey, Brian, how are you?
What it is, pretty good, pretty
All
good.
right, let's talk about. I think this team's in a pretty good position in regards to skill position players. They lose Anunwa, but they've got Kenny Bell, who's been producing for 2 or 3 years. I would consider one of the top 2, 3, 4 wide receivers in the Big Ten. Of course, Ameer Abdullah might be arguably the best back in the nation. He's certainly in the top 5. So they've got guys that they need to get the football to. So you got to feel good about them. I'm going to ask you about maybe a number 2 guy at wide receiver, a number 3 guy, a backup running back, because you need another guy that's going to get 5 to 8 carries maybe a game. So how do you feel about, in addition to the stars, those other guys that may need to make a big play here and there?
First off, Abdullah, he's going to be all Mr. Everything. 1,800 yards last year, caught the ball real well, ran behind a line that was pretty patchwork at times. Pretty much did as much as you could ever ask a Nebraska back for. The 2 guys you want to watch, there's actually 3 guys you want to watch behind him. First off, the junior Imani Cross, kind of like the goal line back, the short yardage back, the fourth quarter bruiser, if you will. Amir's more the slash and speed guy. Imani will just run you over and like it. Sophomore Terrell Newby, last year, he tried to get some touches out of the slot position, slot receiver. Is probably going to get some more touches out of there, especially out of that fast guy. And there's another bruiser coming out of Texas, redshirt freshman Adam Taylor out of Katy High School, was the 5A Player of the Year a year and a half ago in Texas. Pretty good player. Everybody knew that Katy was going to run it that year. They won the state title. It was a matter of if Adam was going left or right, and Adam still ran over everybody. Didn't have a lot of offers because he tore an ACL. LSU kind of wanted him, but Nebraska kind of got him under the radar, and kind of showed a lot of other schools. So running back wise, pretty deep. Nebraska's had some decent depth at running back, and all of a sudden it's evaporated on them with the transfers like Aaron Green and Braylon Hurd. So, it's kind of something to watch this year and past. Obviously, Amir's the senior of the group. Wide receiver, there's a lot of guys you can choose from. First guy I want to talk about, the slot guy, Jamal Turner. He's a senior out of Arlington, Texas. Has shown a lot of brilliance in his career, but he's also been hurt a lot in his career. Missed probably half the season last year due to hamstring issues. He's a guy who Nebraska seems to want to scheme to get the ball for, but he can never get on the field and get more than 3 or 4 touches a game. His first touchdown was the clincher against Michigan State a couple years ago in East Lansing on the out route. A guy that, is a senior, was supposed to be a quarterback, but they switched him to wide receiver, and, really has shown flashes, but he hasn't really been doing much of anything. 2 other guys you want to watch in the wide receiver spot, Jordan Westerkamp, the guy who caught the Hail Mary pass against Northwestern to win the game. A guy who kind of came on in the part last year. Kenny Bell came out in media days, said, hey, I was hurt. I have had collarbone. Westerkamp really kind of came to the forefront and did something. The other guy you want to watch is a guy named Sam Birch. He's a junior and really kind of came to the forefront also last year, playing on the opposite side of Bell when he was out. Really did a lot of good things. Think he can grow a lot, especially in his junior year. Derek a little deep on that. Tight end, still waiting to see what's going to come out of the Ethan Carter kid out of New Orleans. Freshman last year, was really hyped. Was taken, not the highest recruit, was taken over a bunch of guys like Bo Sandlin of Miami, who I really love. I literally love Sandlin, but hey, guess what? That's not going to happen. Offensive line, 2 guys you want to watch, real simple. First off, Alex Lewis, the transfer from the University of Colorado, will have 2 years to play for Nebraska. Really kind of a nasty streak. There's a legacy kid that probably should have came to Nebraska in the first place. Got dumped last year right before he left school in Colorado. Pretty much picked up and threw a Air Force cadet. Served a little bit of jail time. If he was leaving Nebraska, everybody think he'd be, a scumbag, nothing like that. Coming to Nebraska, well, he just has a nasty streak, and we need that like the old 1990 guys. He's pretty much taking the left tackle job over. Him and Gregory have had, quote unquote, some epic battles going in practice. Should be pretty good to watch. The other one you want to watch, is Jake Cotton, the left guard. Barney's son. He's a senior. Him and Mike Moody should be starting a senior, along with maybe Mark Planey, which is Bo's nephew. Pretty solid line year-wise with juniors and seniors. There's no junior and senior. Maybe Chongo Condolo at right guard that would come out. So year-wise, they're pretty stacked. Start-wise, it's not really the same. There's not that many starts on there. You're replacing a lot of guys. Mark Planey, Jay Cotton, maybe Ryan Reeves, gets a lot of start. Moody has to step up. Stacks has to step up. You got kids like David Knievel that's got to step up. And, Matt Finn is a junior that needs to do something. It's kind of like the defensive line we talked about in the previous video. There's a lot of guys that are able to step up. We need to see who the 5 are they're going to step up. We've probably got 2 or 3 of them on the offensive line that are going to be there, but we need to develop both depth and be able in the playing time. And last year, Ameer proved that he could play behind a patchwork line. If it only gets better, that's only going to be better for both Ameer and whoever's playing quarterback, having the time to throw and such.
Okay, we'll let the quarterback breakdown go. We carved it up pretty well in the previous post, so we'll direct people to the Big Ten Media Days Nebraska post there for the quarterback breakdown between Armstrong and Johnny Stanton in particular. So my question in relation to the quarterback position is, of course, as you mentioned, Abdullah's the stud. He's got to get the football a ton. You're pretty set at wide receiver. You've got some pieces there. It starts with Kenny Bell. Offensive line, it sounds like you think there are some pieces in place, but it was a bit of a patchwork situation there. Okay, you're going to have to complete passes, of course, to win football games and win that division. At the same time, Bo talked about balance today at Big Ten Media Days. Is this offense really going to be balanced, or is it going to be more like 65-35?
That's a great question. He says every year they need the balance of 50%, and then all of a sudden, second game of the year, you see offensive coordinator Tim Beck run the same play 9 times in a row. We asked him about that, and he goes, gosh, I just happen to like it 9 times in a row. It's like Madden where, they want to play, they're playing nickel for the 14th time in a row. I'll just run around the middle. So you asked about that, and, hey, it's a great idea. Somebody just talked to me on Twitter today, hey, when are we going to stop throwing on first, second down? And I'm like, well, I see your point because, gosh, we threw the ball into the other people's hands, everything, it didn't work. We had 3 and outs and everything. But sometimes, if you're going to tell me 9 out of 10 times that Ameer Abdullah or Monty Cross is going to run the ball on first down, it's not going to be a very good offense. So 50-50 is ideal, obviously. They all say that. That's coach speak. I think 60-40 looks really good, 60% running. So, at best, 60-40, 55-45. Nebraska's gonna have to, have the identity. They're the running school. They're the school that still, the fan base still wishes we were in the triple option for gosh sakes. So yeah, they're gonna have to run the ball a little more than they want to. But if running the ball means that we get better situations again for Tommy Armstrong or Johnny Stanton, whoever can't turn the ball over. If it means we have to run the ball a billion times, have no turnovers to win the game, I don't think anybody's going to be upset with that. I think the fact that some people just want to just abandon the pass and go full straight up Navy triple option, that really bothers me because you still have to throw the ball to win the game now, especially in the college game where it's a lot more spread. You can't really spread people out 4 wide and try to run the ball, between the tackles on the goal line anymore. You have to be able to do both, and that just upsets some people. But at the same time, guess what? It's the way of life, especially in big time college football, especially the Big Ten. So, it just 50-50. I'd rather just see us, whatever wins. The one thing that drives us nuts is the same 9 plays in a row by Tim Beck. That can cease anytime because, gosh, it just drives you batty when you're trying to do this game report and you're like, well, run left, run left, run left, run left. Hey, guess what? But I think more 60-40 is really what Nebraska wants to get done, and that 40% passing has to be more efficient because if that number goes higher than 60% for Nebraska running, that's bad. That's very bad.
Okay, Brian, let's talk defense. You know the personnel, you know the decisions that have been made, the scheme changes throughout the years. I'll just start with the results. When I watched this team at the end of the Big 12 run before they joined the Big 10, I saw a defense that was a top 5 defense in the country, a defense that after Colt McCoy carved up everybody in the country, including Oklahoma, threw 40 touchdowns, had that kind of success against everybody, could not complete a pass for more than 3 yards against his defense or move the ball downfield to save his life. And that wasn't just an aberration. That happened over and over. Top flight defense. So I expected big defense and then a brutal offense to join the Big Ten, and it completely flipped. And this defense got ravaged by the better teams, i.e. Wisconsin, Big Ten championship game, Ohio State a couple years ago. They seem to have played better. I don't know if they just caught a break in the schedule. That was part of it. But a Georgia offense that shows you Gurley, Hudson Mason, pretty good quarterback in relief of Aaron Murray, speed at the outside positions, although they had injuries. They stacked up pretty well in the bowl game. And again, I don't know if it was catching a break, not facing Wisconsin and Ohio State in particular, but it seemed like there was an upward swing defensively.
Yeah. The thing with that team that played Texas in Arlington, it was a great secondary, if you think about it. That secondary had Prince Amukamara, Eric Haig, Fonzie Denard, John Gomes, who all went to the NFL. And pretty much it was the base on Bo Pelini's defense is this. It's a cover 2 scheme with it's a cover 2 scheme, pattern matches, which is kind of like what Saban does, but Saban has a little more aggression in his line. The one thing that Nebraska does with their line, and it drives everybody just straight loony, is they're not really aggressive. They don't want, they want to keep the quarterback in the pocket. It works well when, you have a traditional pocket passer. If you have somebody like a Russell Wilson, a Braxton Miller, I could come up with a bunch of guys like like Melvin Gordon who can get outside real quick. That's the problem. A lot of people. Now I realize Melvin Gordon's not a quarterback, but the problem with Nebraska became they went from a really good line with a really great secondary to a really good secondary with an absolutely atrocious line. In the 2012 Big Ten title game, the same play. It was the same play. It's jet sweep left, jet sweep right, jet sweep left, jet sweep right. Nebraska, got blown away. It was in the following year. No, it was the same year. Ohio State, they ran a single high safety against Braxton Miller all day, and they couldn't throw the ball. If you remember right, when Nebraska played in the horseshoe, they couldn't throw the ball very well. Didn't matter because Braxton ran all over them like a truck. So, I always remember this one quote from that season against Wisconsin at the end of the game at the post-game presser. Bo came out and says, "Hey, I haven't forgotten how to stop playing the run." And 6 games later, Wisconsin just absolutely takes us behind the shed. So, okay, you tell me. What now is Nebraska's gotten a little less better in the secondary, but their front 4, especially in their front 7, is going to be pretty good this year. Again, you have Gregory, who could probably play the run a little better, but definitely can play the pass very well. You have guys on the other side of him like Joe Keels and Greg McMullen who are going to get better. Vincent Valentine's a 350-pound run stuff for the middle. Malik Collins isn't very slim, so you're going to have to run outside of him. Linebacking crew is way better than it was 2 years ago. David Santos had a lot of trouble in the middle linebacking spot last year. He got carved alive by Minnesota's tight ends. He's got put into the side. It's been a contest in the middle between Michael Rose and Josh Banderas for the middle linebacking core. Courtney Love and Zaire Anderson are on the weak side. It's pretty, that's going to be a pretty good linebacking core. Nebraska spent a lot of time trying to get these linebackers better. They're guys that, what we've discovered is if Nebraska can play that little, what they call peso, which is that faux nickel where they have a guy who can differentiate between a safety and a linebacker, they do pretty well. But when Nebraska gets into base stuff sometimes and, gets outspeeded on some things, it's really that's when bad things happen. Georgia 2 years ago, they were even with Georgia to the fourth quarter, and then all of a sudden Aaron Murray just decided to, the one play that flipped the entire game was a jailbreak screen on a cover zero blitz that went for 85 yards, and then Todd Gurley looked good last year. It wasn't bad. Gurley was hurt. Murray wasn't in the game. We did enough to win, and that was pretty good. Again, it's like football all the time. If you can stay healthy, you're really good. If this defense stays healthy, it's really good. Corey Cooper's going to be one of the safeties. We think either Leroy Alexander or Nathan Jerry's going to be one of the other safeties down there. Cornerbacks, you got one senior in Josh Mitchell. You got a JUCO transfer in Byerson Cockrell. Cockrell looked pretty good in spring. He looked pretty good in the spring game until he, got hurt and left after like 5 plays. Other side, Jonathan Rose and DJ Singleton are going to fight it out a little bit. There's a bunch of other guys that are going to come along, and it's just like that offensive line. It's some guys are decent, but there's not a lot of experience in that back four. We're going to have to find experience in the back four to be good. Nebraska can probably be thrown on a little bit this year. They won't be ran on very well, so it'll be different than what you've seen maybe against Ohio State and against maybe Wisconsin. If it's where Nebraska's being thrown a little bit, I like our odds just because our front four is probably the best. Everybody's saying this is the best defense Nebraska has since 2010, which, ironically, let's face it, Nebraska hasn't had great defenses ever since that team left. And I'm not saying that, it's been bad. It's just that 2010 team was really good. So on paper, it could be really good. On paper, it could be an atrocious train wreck, depending on what happens with the back four or even the pace of the back five. So how Nebraska's secondary goes will determine how they do defensively in their season. And that's just the honest truth. If Gregory stays healthy, he's going to be a train. If that front four can stay healthy and get 6 to 7 guys in a rotation, even though the defensive end is pretty thin for Nebraska because there's only 10 guys on roster, and if I remember right, 6 guys on scholarship for defensive end between both sides. That's an issue. But, again, if they can stay healthy in the front seven and get guys experience, the only thing they have to worry about is that secondary. Once that secondary gets pretty good, it's going to be really good defense. But they're going to have to grow through the year for Nebraska to have a chance, especially in the November schedule. That's going to be brutal. They got to go to Iowa. They have to go to Wisconsin, and they'll have to play one of the Big Ten championship games. It could be Michigan, Michigan State, or Ohio State. Braxton Miller's going to carve you alive. And let's face it. Nebraska's not done very well, especially in November, the last couple of years. So that's, if they can get better on defense, it's going to be really good. If they can't get better on defense, it's going to be the big liability for them this year. Offensively, yeah, they probably could probably get a lot better, and it's not going to matter who they play. Defensively, it's going to be on that back four, and it's going to be, unless injuries just devastate them, which is possible. It's always football, but secondary bust for Nebraska, I think, this year.
So, Brian, before we let you go, with the Huskers going to camp in about a week, what's the one thing that you'd like to see in August or hear about that's happening at camp that's going to make you feel better about this team going into 2014?
3 things. One, I don't want vocal leaders. I want leader. There has to be a leader that comes and steps up. Offensively, you guys got the guys like Kenny Bell and such like that. Abdullah is one of the leaders on offense. I want a leader on defense. Josh Mitchell, a David Santos, a Jonathan Rose. Gregory kind of doesn't strike me as a leadership type of guy. That's something I really want to see. The second thing I want to hear about, and this is kind of odd, is I want to hear about Nebraska's special teams. It's a twofold problem. One, I don't know if you watched the Nebraska game last year. Pull up. Anybody who wants to have fun, go on YouTube. Go pull up Nebraska punt team, punt return, Penn State. Sorry, what you will find is you will find Jordan Westerkamp catching a football. You will find 9 Penn State Nittany Lions around him. Because what happened is Nebraska had an issue last year where on punt returns they'd rather have you punt the ball, us catch it, and have exactly one yard or less average on returns than you fake it on us. So what happened is Nebraska would release and go, and it drove the fan base absolutely loony. Nebraska was one of the top 10 to 15 teams, I'm guessing. I'm pretty sure I'm right on this, 10 to 15 teams in America on kick returns with Kenny Bell from kickoff returns. Punt returns, we're one of the last 5 teams in America. We were horrible at it. It's just a fact of the matter. Bo and special team coordinator Ross Ells, who is not Ross Ells is not on my Christmas list, but probably not on his anyway, so it makes sense. They played really conservative on that, and it drove people nuts because it made Nebraska have to go longer every single time they got the ball. If you knew that Nebraska's having offensive issues, punt the ball, make it go 70 to the win. They're not going to return it on you. They're not going to let it. They're going to let it bounce. They're going to catch it. Whatever. The second issue with Nebraska's special teams is kicker. Nebraska has coming in this fall Drew Brown. Drew Brown is the younger brother of former Husker and NFL kicker Chris Brown. Come from the same high school, South Lake Carroll, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Last year, kicking for Nebraska wasn't a big issue. Pat Smith was the one-year transfer from Illinois, came in, took the job, hit 9 of 10, I believe, if I remember right, and did pretty well. I didn't like it to begin with, but I thought it was okay. Now Nebraska's kind of got a conundrum, if you want to see that word, conundrum, at kicker. At place kicker, we have Mauro Bondi, who really didn't sell everybody a lot of confidence during the spring game. Then you have Drew Brown coming in, and then you got a couple walk-ons from Lincoln and Kearney, Nebraska, both, and you have a sophomore punter, Sam Foltz, who really didn't do a whole heck of a lot. For every 4 good ones, there was one Von Schaum shank that looked like it went 20 yards, and that was it. So Nebraska's getting a lot better, especially on special teams this year. It's not that field goal kicking was bad and kickoff returns and such were bad, but the guy that was doing it for us so well last year is gone now, and we need someone to step up. And with a team that is so marginally tight, as in, you're close to Fresno State on the road, you're close to Miami on the road at home, you have somebody like Wisconsin on the road, you have somebody like Iowa on the road, who are, Iowa's picked to beat you in the division, Wisconsin's picked to beat you in the division. If you're going to beat them, you need solid special teams. And Nebraska lacked something like that last year, and it's definitely going to be something I'm going to watch this year because, if it can't get better, it's that doesn't matter how good you get on offense or defense. If your special teams stink, you're not going to do very well. It's going to put you behind 8 ball more times than not, and you're going to lose a game or two because of it. It's going to cost you probably a Big Ten title, and who knows how the season goes? It could cost Bo Pelini his job. I'm not saying it's going to, but if you're a 9-3 team and you lose 2 more games because of special teams, you're now a 7-5 team. 7-5 Bo Pelini in Nebraska. You think 9-3? You think 8-4 last year after the Iowa game? People were upset. Try 7-5 and we lose to Iowa again. Oh boy! So.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on the special teams a little bit more than we would the normal team, and I'll also be observing how many times you use the word conundrum the next time we have a chat.
Conundrum. Love it. I can't spell it to save my life. Conundrum. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to either, Brian. Brian Towle, SB Nation's Corn Nation's got some great stuff out there. He's got Nebraska covered, as does the entire website. So, Brian, we appreciate your time. You always lay it on the line and tell us like it is.
Mark, appreciate it, man. Thanks. Anytime you want me on, I'm there.